Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Today's episode, we have the incredible Ruth Zambrano, who's on today to talk to us about her career in Schlumberger. She's been in the oil field for more than 16 years. She started her career as a wireline field engineer in Perth, Australia in 2005. She joined Schlumberger to have a borderless career and an adventure, and that's exactly what she has gotten. She has been in operations most of her career, and she truly enjoys that side of the business. So we can't wait to find out more about you, Ruth. Thank you for being on today.
Thank you very much, Massiel. Thank you very much, Jamie, for having me here in the Flipping the Barrel podcast. I've been a follower from your podcast since the beginning. And I'm very happy today about this interview. So let's see if I can answer you some questions about me, about my life, about my career, and how can and the advices that I will give to anyone who wants to enjoy life in operations.
I just love that. Thank you, Ruth. We're really excited about this. And what's really interesting about your story is really the beginning. Tell us about your childhood and growing up with a family full of doctors, and you kind of, went on your own way to become an engineer. So why don't you tell us what that was like and kind of what your family thought?
Yes, for sure. First, I am from Ecuador, from a small city in the coast of Ecuador. I have two brothers and both parents, doctors. And a family in general where the medicine is the main profession most of them chose. So growing up a family of doctors was rewarding. My both parents are gynecologists and surgeons. So there were always great news about new babies, born twins, even I seen one triplet. So it was a life of a lot of happiness because of what they did. But also a lot of sacrifices. The life of doctors is around schedules, hospitals, and around time for mothers and babies. So lots of sacrifices also as a family. My mom had pictures of all the kids that they were receiving all the time around, and it was really nice. And their life have been serving their communities and their hospitals where they work, and I'm very proud about that. Even today, I have friends that their kids were received by my mother and my father, and that's I'm very proud about that. And they are already young adults, So that was my life as a child.
That's incredible. And like you mentioned, having two doctor parents, they must have been drilling into you since you were a child to become a doctor as well and follow in their footsteps. How was that? Because it is difficult growing up with a little bit of that pressure of where you think you need to go in life. And then what made you decide to say, no, I want to be an engineer, which is also rare to hear from a young girl, especially in that kind of small town where I think when we spoke, you mentioned women were taught more to, you cook, you clean, you learn more of the women tasks. That must have been a big choice for you.
Yeah, so Maciel, I did feel the pressure. I have to say that of course, they wanted to have a daughter that was a doctor, and but this did not happen. When I was in a young adult, I was a teenager. I wanted to study art. I didn't want to study medicine, and my mom obviously disagreed. And this is more than 20 years ago. She did not believe in that art was a profession that I could live off, and she mentioned that was a hobby, so you need to do something else. You study doctor, and then you do that as a hobby. But I wanted something different, and I have to say that I got my supporter in my father, that was also a doctor, but he was my supporter. So he took me to visit different universities in Ecuador, not in the city where I was living, but in the capital, where we had the main universities. And the second thing that I liked after art or doing things with my hands was about mathematics and physics. So it was about studying mathematics or engineering. There was not a mathematics in the school that I decided to go, so I chose engineering. But I have to say that I never thought about, when choosing, I never thought about, I will have a lot of males, or there will be a lot of men and not women or not girls. And it was just what I liked, and I had the support of my father to do it, and this is how I did it. He was always the one that was telling me, you should study, you should go further than just getting something easier to study and just marry and have kids. So. I have to say my father was a supporter.
I love that. I love that your father supported you through that process. When you started engineering, was there anything about it that really struck out to you, or was it a difficult thing for you to learn? Or since you were, one to know mathematics, like it just became natural to you, or was it challenging?
Oh, it was challenging. It was challenging because I came from a small city. I already mentioned that. So the highest schools and the schools that we had probably were not the best ones to be at the level of the highest schools from the bigger cities in Ecuador. So it was challenging me to level up myself to those girls and also boys that were probably more ready to enter in a bigger university. So the first years were challenging. It was very difficult for me. I had private classes of mathematics and physics outside the university so I could level up. But once that I was level up, I think was a natural thing for me to do engineering. Mathematics was easy for me. Physics was easy, and then I will say from the second or third year, it was a much easier career than at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. So tell us how you joined Schlumberger, because I believe there's a few funny stories in here. One, you didn't know who they were. I don't believe you had any much knowledge in oil and gas. And tell us, because your friend signed you up for the interview, I believe.
Yes, so I didn't know about Schlumberger during the first event that I attended. That was a career fair in the university. My friend signed me up and we went all together and we learned about what the Schlumberger did. I had a family of doctors. Subjects of oil and gas industry were never discussed. And I studied electronic engineering in telecommunications. So also in my circle of friends or people that I knew, oil and gas was not also in mind or discussions or anything like that. So when I knew about Schlumberger, of course, the career fair was great. The adventure, the technology, I really got a great first impression about what this company was and about the industry in general. Some years after that career fair, and when I was in my last year in university, I received an email for an interview. That was a bit weird because it was at 7 p.m. the interview. And in Ecuador, the normal working hours are up to 6 p.m. So for me, it was something weird. Someone called me to go to an office at 7 p.m. And I was doing my thesis. My thesis consisted in several changes that I had to do to a network, and I had to go up to climb up into the antennas to take certain serial numbers and to change the equipment that was installed in that network. Because those antennas never, not many people go up in those antennas, and very often it was the stairs were very dirty. So of course I was with jeans and a t-shirt, and I finished all my clothes. I had 2 lines of dirtiness coming all the way up from the bottom to my top. These antennas were outside the city where I was living, and I did not have time to go to my apartment, to come back, to change, and to go to the interview. So I say, okay, I don't think this is an interview. I'm sure this is a joke from my friend, and this will be a bar where we will all drink some beers. And I say, okay, let's go like this. I don't have time anyway to go to change. And I went like this, and I always remember getting into a very nice building in the capital of Ecuador. And the security guard just looked at me and it was like, oh, hell, what the hell happened to you? Why are you so dirty? And it's like, I'm coming for an interview, apparently, in the last floor. And it was an interview. It was a very nice recruiter. It was a lady. And she was also, it's like, why? What happened to you? It's like, you're perfect for what I'm going to offer to you. And this is my story with the Schlumberger. I got a job offer a few hours after that interview, and it was just life that put me in, doing what I was doing for my thesis, and then having the interview with the Schlumberger.
That's
I think-
incredible.
Yeah, I think that's just such a great story because it really speaks to what our industry is like. Like you showed up, you worked hard, you were dirty, you're like, whatever, I'm still going to go to the interview because maybe it's really not one, who knows. And then you totally killed it, but also it showed like your commitment and your ability to work hard, which really, goes right into one of your first jobs was actually offshore in Australia running open hole wireline. This is a pretty harsh environment, especially, for a woman. Can you explain like how did that, when you went out there, were you ever like, wow, I don't belong here? Or did you feel supported from the field?
Well, I have to say I had a great manager. I had a first great manager, and he's still a very good friend and mentor of me after more than 16 years. No, it was offshore. In those days, and even today, I think POV was always a concern, and sending obviously one woman was a concern from the customer point of view, and also from a Schlumberger point of view, because they have to arrange for the dorms, for the rooms, for the sharing. It was with the company man, the tool pusher, the medic. They always try to accommodate me, but this didn't mean that they were not resistant. Okay, I always remember my manager pushing and being very supportive so that the customer allow us to go offshore. When I arrived there, I was a trainee, and there were other engineers. Then the other female engineers were transferred. We got another one, and it was easier whenever we were pairs, because then he could push more, because then you had two women going to a rig, and then it was easy to share, no? So that both shifts were covered by female engineers, no? I have to say that he made it possible so that we receive the same opportunities to be exposed than the male engineers. And I've always want to thank him because of what he did during those years. No, that make me technically what I am today, a strong engineer. No. Now, offshore, I have to say the guys offshore at the rig, sometimes we were one or two females there. And I always feel support by everyone who worked at the rigs. Always feel a lot of respect from them to us, and obviously they were also very helpful to support on lifting and the cranes and all that. So thanks to everybody to that one day supported me while working offshore in Australia.
So tell us, what do you think made you last this long in the field, especially because I think you were there 4 or 5 years, and these are hard conditions in terms of long nights, being the only female sometimes, going offshore, coming back, the climate, cold, hot, also being away from your family for a long time. I mean, you were in Australia and your family was in Ecuador. How did that, was it more of a going through a high of an adventure and you were just excited, or, was there a lot of times where you felt like you just wanted to leave and go back home?
Yeah. So I was 3 years in Australia and then 2 more years offshore in Argentina. I have to say what pushed me is I like the adventure, the constant challenge, the learning, and the family spirit as well that we have in the industry. Changing Australia was 40, 50 degrees Celsius. That's about 100, 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Argentina was, I don't know, 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit or less, with gusts of winds of 75 miles per hour, 120 kilometers per hour. So very extreme changes in weather, in conditions, but the challenge, the technology, the constant learning, the team spirit, the family spirit that we had always made it possible. I have to say that. And for me, working has never been a discussion for me. For me, it's more about the environment that you have when you work at the field, and again, teamwork made it possible. Everything. It's like there was not a challenge that we could not resolve because we had a great team.
You just named a few locations that you worked in, and you worked in a lot of different conditions. What was one of the hardest jobs that you've ever taken on, and why did you find it difficult?
Transitioning. I think transitioning from my field life as a field engineer to the first position in management, which was to manage an operation in a small base. in a position call it in those days in the Schlumberger field service management. It was very challenging. First environment. Now I already mentioned cold environment. I've never been a person that likes to work in cold, but I will not say no to that challenge. So I took the challenge and went there. This was in the southern base that the Schlumberger have in the world, which is Punta Arenas in Chile. Where the world almost ended. It was cold, humid, windy. And second, this transition from managing a small crew, because in a wireline job, you go 3 people maximum, and managing a bigger group of people in a remote location where this was a one-woman location, let's call it like that, where I had to learn in very short time sales, import-export rules, customer regulations, customer handling. So it was a hard transition for me. And at the same time, I was the only lady there for my product line, which also posed a challenge on how I developed my leadership style in those years. I have to say that in those years, I believe it. And I have to say, it was my belief that I needed to be something that I was not. I needed to be harsh. I needed to be assertive, direct, perfect. And I was not like that, and for me, posing this type of leadership that was more a male style leadership was difficult because I was not that. So for me, it was hard. I say I believe it because later on, of course, I learned that no one was expecting this from me. It was myself who was believing that and imposing me that no one was really expecting that. No.
Thank you for sharing, because I think a lot of us will face that or have, where we feel that we need to change who we are in order to be respected. And, if you're too nice or if you are who you are, they might think she's not serious, or
Yeah.
And I cannot imagine being in your shoes, having to manage a team of all males, and probably some of them were a lot older than you. And I think we all face this, where sometimes you're managing a team of people who are like, why is she here? I have more experience than her, or, so thank you for sharing. Cause I think it's definitely a big thing that we all deal with. The other thing we wanted to ask you was, can you talk a little bit about operations and managing P&Ls and big teams? Because a lot of women that we have talked to, we're always scared to take such roles. The second they talk about managing a P&L or a team or operations, at least, Jamie and I have always talked about this. We kind of shy away from, are we good enough for that? There's this imposter syndrome that just comes out thinking that really those aren't jobs for us. But you clearly have made an impactful career in operations. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Were you scared to ever take operational roles?
Let me tell you, I am afraid every single day. It's like, I want to be fully honest. No, and it's like, and you mentioned, this is something with us related to the way that we are raised or what the society expects from us. They expect us to be perfect, to be nice all the time. And I was and I am always afraid about not being enough, about not delivering enough of my perfection, or I am not perfect. And probably there are others that are more perfect. But something that I've learned with years, and also because I have excellent mentors, and I do have excellent mentors today, some females and some males, that you just have to be authentic. I think my advice will be that authenticity is the best way to be a good leader. You don't need to know everything. This is another key thing for me. I don't need to know everything. But I have to say, and I'm being honest, it's a constant fight with myself. No one is expecting from me to be perfect, but I am expecting from me to be perfect myself. No, so this is a constant fight for me, to fight this willingness for perfection and to take certain risks. No, so my advice will be, do not be afraid of promoting yourself. Take the risk, prepare for it, take the chances, and be authentic. I'm sure that if you take the chances, you prepare for it, you work hard, you will deliver the results that you need to deliver and beyond, but be authentic.
Oh, that's really great advice. And I think the authenticity part is something that is really showing now with, just being able to be on social media and be present with other people that maybe not know you personally, but, being able to show yourself in all different ways, and then be authentic through each way. Right. So I think that really says a lot what you just stated. And thank you for sharing that. Before we even started the podcast, we were kind of talking about trying to keep people in our industry. You are struggling with that currently where you're based, finding talent and keeping that talent. What do you think the industry can do to not lose, the experience that we have? And what would you say to the next generation on what they should do to come in and why they should be a part of this, or this field that we are in, oil and gas?
Yeah, so I will say the world needs energy, and we are all here, and beyond the oil and gas, the world is committed to do it better for the environment and for ourselves and for the future generations. We are all committed to decrease the emissions that we have today. We are all committed. We all understand that we need to transition to cleaner energies, but while the transition lasts, which is not something that will happen from night to day, we still need energy. And the main source of energy today for the world is still oil and gas. So I do believe it's a hard thing about retaining talents whenever you hear, read about the oil and gas industry is finishing, it's ending, you all should move to a different industry. I think it's difficult because obviously you are thinking in your future, in your family's future. But there is still a few years, I will say a few decades for myself, where oil and gas will still be there. We need to do it better, no discussion about that. We need to do it in a cleaner way, but we still need the talent in the oil and gas, and we need that talent because we need to create the technologies to be able to transition to something different, to something cleaner, to different energies. To the new generations, I was telling you at the beginning, someone asked me the other day in a call, what will you say to the someone who is starting to study in engineering? Should he or she study petroleum engineering or anything related to oil and gas industry? And I will say yes, please do so, because we need your talent, we need new ideas, we need the new generation's ideas, because they are coming, the new guys, they are coming more with that digital mindset, with different thoughts and ideas on how to improve. So we need your ideas. So come and study, because you have a 30, 40 years career that you could still develop in this industry, and help with your ideas so that we can create and develop the technologies needed for the new energy spaces. No.
Totally agree. So another question that we had, the $1 million question, is how have you handled your work-life balance, working in such a crazy, demanding, yet amazing career that you've had, moving around the world, changing jobs? How have you handled relationships? Tell us a little bit about how balance looks on your end.
Okay, so my balance look at my end with one word, which I put it in practice again every single day, and it's flexibility. I met the person that today is my husband while working in Argentina. And from there, he has been my pillar for my career growth. He has been a supporter. He has quit twice so that I could move and continue changing and continue growing. We have moved 5 times from different countries and continents. And the word for us that work is flexibility. We plan ahead our time. Today I know exactly the dates that we will be in vacation during 2022. So that we could all plan the work travel days, and we maintain certain days that are very important for our family, and that I know that for a fact I will be off in those days. So I keep my promises, he keeps his promises. He works in rotation also in the oil and gas industry, and his I will say his support to remain being a rotation worker is what has allowed me to continue growing in Schlumberger in my career. So I will say what worked for us is planning ahead, maintaining our commitments on certain days that are very important for our family, and keeping those promises and having a flexible schedule whenever he's at home. I have always great support from managers and peers about this. They know when he's here because they know that I will connect a little bit late now that we are in remote working or on flexible working. They know that I will at 6 p.m. I will cut because I will have to go. I will have dinner with him. So I'm sure it's not something that I tell everybody, or he's here or no, he's not here, but they know it. It's like the fact that I'm starting late the meetings, or the fact that I'm saying I can do it at 9 or not at 8 or at 7, and at 6 p.m. I cut. So and the support on that has been great too. So I think it's very important that we as women, and everybody in general, men and women, we speak up about what work for us, because one side doesn't fit all.
I really am glad that you shared that, because I feel that boundaries are the biggest thing that you need when it comes to boundaries with work. Because in organizations like Schlumberger, big organizations, you can fill up people can just go in and fill up your calendar. So you have to be transparent that no, I'm off now. I'm not going to accept this meeting. And I think that's important for people to hear that is acceptable, and you should be able to do that. And the company should support you because you've worked your 8+ hours. Believe me, we all have. So I think that's important that you shared that. The last question for you, and now when we were together last and we discussed kind of your history and everything, you talked about too that your parents were both gynecologists, doctors, delivered a lot of babies. You yourself actually ended up deciding not to have children. And the reason why we wanted to bring this up is because we find it an important point to talk about, because a lot of women feel the pressure to have kids. And some just don't want to have kids, and that's absolutely acceptable. And you grew up with a family that delivered babies, so I'm sure the pressure must have been tenfold. What advice would you give to women that are in this circumstance? Because even before Massiel and I had our children, we were asked all the time, when are you gonna have a kid? When are you gonna have a kid? When are you gonna have a kid? And sometimes people struggle with infertility, and sometimes people just don't want children. So what kind of advice would you give?
Yeah, first I want to say I love kids, okay? My niece and my nephews are the most important and wonderful thing that I have in life, okay? But until this moment, it has been my choice not to have kids, and it has not been a choice that I made based on, I want to grow my career, or I will not have time because my job is to demand a lot from me. No, it has been my decision. It has been my personal decision, and I believe is the personal decision of every woman and every family, because it's a family decision that should be respected. No one should be judged by anyone for having kids or not having kids. And I do feel a lot of pressure from family, society, friends about my choice. I've been called selfish, superficial, hating kids, that I will regret my decision later. But at the end of the day, it's my decision, and it's my family decision, So my advice for every woman or every family that is facing this is to analyze what you really want, to stand for it, and to be happy. It's your life, and at the end of the day, it's you who needs to be happy. It's your family who needs to be happy, and whatever the rest of the people say, it's okay. But I personally believe no one should be judged for having or not having. It's just one decision that you take, as you take many in the life, And I also want to mention something. I was also discussing with a friend the other day. If later on, at a later age, you decide that you change your mind and then you want to have kids, that's also okay, because we take decisions based on facts and moments and life events. We stand for it, but we can also change those decisions later, and there will be means or not to fulfill that the choice that you have done. So my advice will be to really think what you want, stand for it, and be happy.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really great advice.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, because like Jamie said, it's actually a really big question that a lot of females we battle with. Do we have kids? Do we not? Why? The pressure from family. The second you get married or in a relationship, people want this. And for Jamie and I, the biggest worry for us was always our career. We were scared that the second we would choose to have a family, okay, that's it. No more career for us, you know? And it's crazy to think, because I mean, 2021 is when we both have kids, and that was still our thoughts, like our mentality. So yes, a lot has changed over the years, but it's weird enough to think that that was still one of our concerns. And I know a lot of listeners have that concern. But one thing that I love about what you said is that is your choice. You should be respected for it. And at the end of the day, if that's what makes you happy, that's what it should be. Because we have spoken to a lot of girls too who said, I just don't want kids. We're in a different era where, or people want to have kids way later on at 40, 45, you know, and that just needs to be kind of like the new norm, you know? So yes, thank you for sharing. I think a lot of people will relate to that.
Yeah, I think both things are great. I enjoy when I don't know, my peers or my employees call and say, look, I'm pregnant. It's like, obviously it's a moment of happiness, and should be. And I don't think any woman should feel the pressure of what will happen with my career if I have kids. Is you know, it's just life. You know, women have kids, or women decide to have or not to have kids. And companies, we need to do everything possible to make sure that a woman can have a career with kids or without kids. And I do think, you know, in general, companies have moved on that mentality, as you say. And in our industry, we're doing big efforts to make sure that women with kids or without kids get the same opportunities of growth, no?
I actually really like what you said about both having the same opportunities, because we spoke to somebody recently that doesn't have kids and doesn't want kids. And she said that what was difficult for her, and it was a really good advice for Jamie and I to hear this, because now you see the other person's perspective. But what she was battling with was, well, I can't do this on this day, but you don't have kids, so you should be able to, or you should work more because you don't have kids. So she was saying, like, it's like, because I don't have kids, people feel that my time isn't as valuable because I don't have to pick up my kids, you know? So that's what she was battling with. And it was something that I never realized, but I was like, she's right. Sometimes we do think, hey, you can take on more work. You don't have 3 kids like we do, or, you know, but that's something that I definitely wanted to bring up, because it's good to see your perspective too, and make sure that we're respecting both equally in terms of opportunities and workload.
Yes, and you know, Jamie mentioned this is the boundaries that you need to put. You know, not having kids doesn't mean that you don't have a life.
Yes.
I do have a life, and you do have many things that you want to do in your time off or in the time that you are not working, and that you should be respected, or I should be respected for that time that I need to, I don't know, go to the gym. I like to take dance classes. I like to go out with my friends, visit my mom. So everybody should be respected. When you have kids, obviously your priorities are different. You take your kids to the playground, you take your kid to the, I don't know, the tennis classes or anything like that. So it's just how you decide to use that time that you are not working. And everybody should have the same opportunities at work, to growth, but also the same opportunities to enjoy their time out of work.
I love that. That's perfect. And that's a really great way to end the podcast, but also to give that perspective to everybody listening. And thank you so much for coming on. You're such a wealth of knowledge, and it's so great to hear from you from, you know, you're based not even in Houston. So it's so awesome to like talk to you in Ecuador and for you to share your experiences. So thank you.
Thank you, Ruth.
Yes, of course. Always available. Thank you very much, ladies, for inviting me, and wishing you a lot of success. I'm very excited about what's going to come in March, the meeting in Houston. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend, but it's like wishing that I know that the tickets are already all sold out. So for sure will be a success. And please do share certain photos, pictures, videos, ideas that you discuss in the meeting in Houston. Will be great to know about them through LinkedIn.
Thank you so much.
Bye.